Yeah, they're not working, they're not sitting back. The reason it's all my items get a better deal anyway, there's more. Lack of business people, such a way.
That's a low.
You're right, man. That is pretty low.
Russian count. Russell, of course. So red in the face.
Fantastic.
He was out.
It's frustrating because he can't.
You probably know the same, you burn your hand and then.
Even on the job. Someone on red. But that's all right.
They should have listened to it. That's true.
Send an email. I didn't know. Do you want to know?
Yeah.
Can I be there?
No, well, we'll just get to the petitions will come present.
Sorry?
Petitions will come presented.
Yeah.
Taking a job.
Oh, I thought you meant on the sort of association.
That's money, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We tried.
I thought to do with the association.
Live meeting. And I'll welcome those present. The guys at the meeting will be recorded in accordance with the council policy code and electronic recording of council meeting policies. Meetings of council to assist in the preparation of minutes, ensure a true and accurate account of debate and discussion of meetings is available. Now be upstanding for prayers. Prayers in order to
Lord God, creator of heaven and earth, we thank you for this region we live in. Thank you for this council you've placed to govern it. We pray that you'll give them wisdom and guidance in this meeting tonight to make wise decisions for the good of all people in this wonderful district. We ask this through Jesus Christ our Lord, who taught us to pray.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
to the minutes, confirmation of the minutes, that's here, so I don't need to do the roll call. The minutes of the ordinary meeting on the 18th of February. Somebody prepared to move it. Thanks, Councillor Plosky, Councillor Kay. Queries on the minutes? Not, I'll put the motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. Item 3, issues raised by councillors. 3-1 and 3-2 nil. 3-3, responses to questions there. Go down to councillor questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice?
Yes, I have a couple, Mr. Mayor. Just in regards to the cemetery at the turn-off, the crematorium wall, I think I asked a question on with the crematorium wall. That it needs attention, the crematorium wall, which the lady to contact. And also in the new area, there's been some wire put around the grave. If everyone does this, then it won't look as nice at the cemetery. It's in the new area. And they also want to pass on that Andrew does a great job at the cemetery as well.
Jim and pass it on. Find out what's going
There's
on.
some wire around one grave, wire fence around.
Must be the reason for it. Find out. Any further questions? Councillor.
I'd like to, my first question is to, I read in the Chronicle that rural health employs 80 people, and I wondered if it would be possible, I know that's not just in Circular Head, but I'd like to request a report summarising the mental health services provided in Circular Head. Recently in the Chronicle I read that rural health employs 80 people across various local government areas. They are an important referral point for government for Circular Head. If rural health is applying for funding on behalf of the district, there must be in existence an outline of what already is available in the area and where the gaps are. And I'd like to understand the demographics which are being serviced in Circular Head by which organisation and an estimate of the amounts of funding which are servicing these. Can this be provided by an external party to councillors?
Yeah, do you want them to come to a workshop and talk about what they do? Or you just want a report?
No, I think if a report just outlined the demographics that were being serviced, because they must have had to put that into several submissions, the demographics, particularly outlining the ages and which sections.
So you want to do that for Shack as well, to say that as well?
Well, I would have thought that rural health would have to say, Shack look after this group, or
Okay, yeah.
they probably have to have some sort of understanding of the other services that are being provided before they go and ask for more money. So,
Yeah, that's fine.
my second question, Mr. Mayor, it is an understatement to say that at council we are discussing important new changes for the district. The population strategy, we've passed a motion to have 2,000 more people come and live here. The settlement strategy, where can we build for these people? Housing, where will they live? That's a lot of new houses. Importantly, who will pay? I'm not sure we've discussed that so much, we're still getting to that, but it's important. The scenic protection, what's the balance of renewable energy in the landscape? Future character statements, what we want Circular Head to look like after the rumble and tumble of development, seaside shacks or Sisters Beach-like developments. Not to mention the economic and political climate to mean the demand for wind resource of the area is now of national importance in an international industry and will attract significant attention in a fast-moving industry. These decisions will change the place as we know it. It will affect every single one of us and many more. My question, Mr. Mayor, is where are the conversations? It's not enough, Mr. Mayor, for us as a district to be like children once dinner is served, to say, I don't like it. So before coming to you, I have asked myself, what's happening? Is there not enough free press? Is council a closed shop? Are the community and residents not interested? The Stanley Chamber of Commerce, the Circular Head Tourism Association, the Tarpine Coast Progress Group, Sir Optimus, Rotary Lions and every other community group, sporting club and business should be talking about this. And we councillors should be in discussion with them, and they should want to know because this affects their future. This is new for all of us, and I don't believe the community really wants to give its entire voice to 9 people. It's the social fabric and natural beauty which help make this place for me and my family, and they are both being reshaped. I couldn't find very many places where they were taking place. So I asked Mr. Mayor, where are the conversations? When will they start?
I believe they've already started, and I think I'd be very disappointed if council laws haven't been talking to people over the last 12 months about a lot of these things, and I think that needs to continue to happen. I think the frustrating part has been for me is with the community, we're supposed to be going out to the community consultation, and at the mayor's workshop last week, we had a woman from Victoria that spoke very well with, and only today I gave Scott a name of a person that is extremely good at that, because I think we need to do a fair amount more work with community consultation like this, as well as because it does entail a lot of things. It's housing, and it's jobs, and it's training. There's a lot of things we need to talk to, not only business people, but the ordinary people. And we talked about it when Ella was here about we need to talk to people about overseas people that actually come here to make them feel more comfortable. And I don't think we've only scratched the surface at this point in time. We've got a lot more work to do, but I think a lot of people, I hope councillors have been talking to people about that over the last 12 months, but we do need to do a lot of work. But there was a lot in there, and I think if we can get a copy of what you actually stated, we will need to probably have a workshop and discuss it further. Unless you got any comments?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Epton raises a very important point in terms of the conversation that has to happen. One of the elements that council and other community bodies will be struggling with is the absence of the understanding, particularly from the state and the federal government, in terms of how they're promoting those outcomes. Most people may or may not be aware of the energy coordination framework that was out for public submissions. We received information earlier this week to say that those submissions are going to be published. As soon as that happens, I'll be interested to see how many submissions were actually made to that particular document. You are correct in terms of identifying that we are talking about quantum changes in terms of community, and not all growth is good. We actually have to plan it. We have to work with community in terms of maximising the local benefit, particularly for the youth and children and grandchildren in the district. There's a lot of challenge in terms of when the investment is not at the state or federal government level, it involves a private partner. Those sorts of partnerships we have to manage very carefully in relation to making sure that the doors of opportunity are always open, particularly for, as I mentioned before, the youth who might aspire to actually live in our region and have these new jobs and new technologies and all those particular outcomes. There are an element within the community who probably the information is not permeating to. It was one of the things that was raised in the submission that Council put in to the Minister for Energy in relation to the information actually has to be broken down into those elements of community so the community can actually understand it. Right down to the grassroots level in terms of will it impact my car park when I'm getting to the local news agent to get my normal services. Those things in terms of quantum and scale, we are aware of several projects at the moment. We're actively engaged in assessing those and the dialogues in community. But you're right in terms of highlighting there's actually a significant change going to happen. We are a positive place for people to choose to live. Tasmania is absolutely on the radar. There's no question about that. Life in its essence is respectfully quite normal, not like other places in larger metropolitan centres where we hear on the daily news there's a change and circumstances are always fluid. Those elements themselves, and I would implore everybody to start the conversations with everybody they speak to say, what do you think about, how would you feel about, what opportunities do you see for your family or your individuals that you're connected with, your business? Is there an opportunity at this point in time? How do we fix the housing? I think it's many hands make light work. There's a lot of opportunities in our region for people to actually stimulate the process, to actually think. We're not where we were 18 months ago, we're actually in a completely different place. And that's the dynamic that I see, is that we will have to partner with state and federal government, and there's opportunities on the horizon for actually us to do that. But you're spot on in terms of asking the question and saying, where's the conversation? Because we're not hearing it in the coffee shop or wherever around community. It's not a question that's being raised, in service clubs or football or sporting clubs. All those particular corners of community actually need to embrace this change, or have an opinion so that they can provide feedback to council and the processes.
I was interested today, I spoke at Chill today, and the guy said, you made a statement in the year 2000, I don't know what he was ever saying, and he said, you stated at that point in time that we needed 2,000 more people to live here, and he said, I thought that was absolutely crazy, but I said, I actually understand now that you're right, but it's 21 years later, so that was a rather interesting statement. So some people do get it and do listen to what's being said, even though I wouldn't have expected anybody to realise that I made a statement like that in 2000.
The importance of the planning scheme in this is absolutely number one.
Yep, that's right. No, exactly.
I'd like to thank Keith Redmond for the question and the statement that you made. It's done a really good job.
Yeah, no, that's important. Any further questions about notes? Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What is the normal time to get a response from a request from a community member that comes through the door? I had one or two say to me they put a request in or a query and they haven't had a response. What is the normal time for that to get back to our community member? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the normal time for a generic request is 14 days, 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? No further questions. We'll go on to declaration of pecuniary interest, and I obviously have one in slide 7. Others? No others? I now need a resolution for items 5, 6 and 7. Somebody prepared to move that? Yes, Councillor.
Just confirm the interest is at pecuniary and non-pecuniary.
Thanks, Councillor Oldacre. A second.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Kane. Put the motion to all those in favour.
Aye.
That's carried. 5 is the notification of council workshops. Is there any questions on those? Councillor Oldacre.
Mr. Mayor, we had some discussion with State President, with the email from the Minister, about what was going to happen with the Bass Highway, and expressed those viewpoints. But it astounded me going to the coast this week, if we're going to renew this highway, why are they spending thousands of dollars doing patchworks along the road instead of what will have to come up? Or is that some of the money in the 40s, the $600 million from the state and federal government being used in that?
I believe that is.
I understand you asking the question because it looks absolutely ludicrous if that's what we do.
No, I would say that that's not. Fair enough comment. Anything further on the workshops? We'll move to mayor's appointments. Is there any questions on any of those?
Mr. Mayor, I just had a question on the first appointment you had about housing proposal review. A bit more detail into what eventuated there.
That was the people come up from Catholic Care.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah, the other ones that I think we talked about at a workshop where they looked at and looking at the Roberts land, and then we got an offer. It looked like we might have an offer on that, so we need to deal with it first. But in the meantime, we've been looking at other land that is still being looked at, as I understand. Because if we have got some land available, we will look at putting in for funding to build new houses. So, Councillor Oliver.
Mr Mayor, my question is in regard to the representatives meeting of the Cradle Coast Authority. What was the outcome of Coast Water at that meeting?
The meeting is next Thursday. This is a preparation for ready for that meeting. Not the meeting next Thursday. Anything further? If not, I'll excuse myself while you deal with item 7.
Thank you, Mr. Loudon. Well, you've got a petition there, and I'll hand over to the GM to go through it.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Under item 7.1, we have the details in relation to the provision of the petition that was submitted to council in relation to the block in Grant Street. As you can see from the information, the circumstances are that it is essentially established that the petition is valid. The recommendation before us there is that we hold a public meeting within 30 days from the date of this meeting, including providing public notice at least two occasions, providing 21 days for submissions to be made from the date of the first public notice. Essentially, provisions of the Local Government Act are essentially established, and electors have the right to table that petition for council's consideration.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I rise to move the recommendations that are before us.
I'll second, Mr. Deputy.
Councillor Hill? Do you want to speak to
That's okay.
I'll just say very briefly, let's get it done. It's on public record of what's happened, how it's happened. Let's get it done and put it to bed. Deputy Mayor, I thought I'd be supporting the recommendation for 2 reasons. I don't believe it meets the criteria. We know DM's ascertained that it could well be. And the second one is, I believe questions have been asked of council, questions have been answered of council, at council of those questions. The minutes are public minutes. Anyone with a concern can read those minutes, and I don't believe that we need a public meeting at this stage.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor. As I read through the petition and the amounts that have, names that are on that petition, and maybe I read it wrong, but I thought there was not enough names on that petition to hold a public meeting. Am I correct?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, the circumstances are a number of those names are difficult to validate whether they're actually on the electoral roll or not. However, we've erred on the side or benefit of those people that have submitted themselves to the petition and suggested that they are residents of the district, given that the electoral roll may or may not have been updated, and given the balance of the probability to the fact that they could well be residents, hence they essentially comply with the provisions to call a public meeting.
So really we're only guessing by that, by what is in front of us, by the amount of names that are there.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, the circumstances in relation to the role of electors is that we take it on its value, But in terms of the names, some of those weren't able to be validated. Maybe again, Matthew can describe that a little bit better.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So effectively the Act requires people to be electors and they reach a number of, which is 5% of the electors of the municipal area. So not everyone who is a resident is an elector. Not everyone who's a resident will be on the electoral roll. In looking through the list of names and taking them at face value, there are 10, I believe it was, that aren't residents. The rest would appear to be residents, but not all of those are on the electoral roll. So in the strictest technical sense, the 5% of electors is not reached. But if you looked and considered the intent of the legislation, there's probably 5% of the 5%, the number equivalent to 5% of the electors has been reached with residents of Circular Head. So in that case, it's a recommendation that Council grants the request to hold the community meeting, but it is absolutely at Council's discretion because of that compliance issue.
Yeah, I'm glad you explained that because it is Council's discretion and I won't be voting for it. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment to say that I believe that if the group wanted to go and collect 10 more signatures, I don't think that they would have a problem given the frequency of which we receive petitions at Circular Head Council. I don't think I've ever, anyway, I don't think that we get very many petitions, and so I would think that it wouldn't be difficult to go and collect 10 more signatures, and that agreeing with Councillor Blizzard, let's just get on with it.
Nora speaking. Yeah, you can still speak to close there.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I look at it this way, that this petition, these people have ordered the trouble of doing this petition. If we treat them with contempt, we're going to get an absolute flogging. In my view, have a public meeting. We sit around here and know what's been told to us. Let's have the public meeting to explain that the proper process was put through. If you fail to do that, then you're giving the opportunity to some of these people to say, we've got things to hide. We haven't, and so therefore we need to have that public meeting. Call on the council to support it.
No worries. I'll be voting for it anyway as well because I just see that we need to get over and done with on all council business lines. But on regard to that, I'll put the vote. All those in favour of the motion?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's 6 for and 2 against. No worries. Thank you. Yeah, come back in.
Judy.
Okay. On again. We now come to 8, which is 8.1, follow-up correspondence to questions without notice of previous meetings. 8.2 responses, which are in the agenda. And are there any public questions without notice? Doesn't look like it, so we'll go on to notice of motion. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion is there, I won't read it out. Stand and read the motion.
Got a second for the motion? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Every day that this Tarpon Forest is in visual form is left shut, it decays. rapid rate. When it was closed, at some point with the minister at that time, that something would be done about it. He continues to sit on his hands. And I can't really say what I think about the minister, but I could probably. But,
Better if you did.
I'm not too worried about that, Mr. Mayor, but the reality of it is, you know, we have all this business about bike tracks. There was $400,000 spent on a bike track there, and it's never been used. They could spend $100,000 there, the government, and could make that usable. The facility's gonna take now some work to get that done. Heaven knows what has fell, trees have fell over, anything else, since it was shut. It was something that the former Premier Paul Leonard was very passionate about getting these sort of things into the communities. And I know that when forestry demised, that some of these things were taken over by parks, and they've not exactly helped things, as the next motion will also indicate. But the reality is, these are facilities that if we're going to promote tourism into the industry, these are the facilities that we need to see open. And you don't know what really, from here on in, what it might bring. At the present time, there's not been, some of the interstate people are coming in, they're looking for places to go, and there's a lot of traffic goes that way, and it soon will come to a payable proposition. But the minister needs to be brought to the table. If it means him bringing him here, then let's have it out with him, because it is a disgrace leaving it like it is.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering if we can move to committee to discuss it, or get confirmation on the process of why we need this motion.
Why we need the motion.
Yeah, I've got a query I'd like to move to committee to discuss why this motion's there.
Oh, you can move the motion that we go into committee to discuss. Suspend meeting procedures, yeah.
Sorry,
Suspend meeting procedures to allow us to do that. So you will move that?
I'll move that, yes.
Somebody second
Yeah, I'm going to listen.
that? Yeah. Thank you. The motion, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Now, we'll have some discussion there.
The point I raised going to the committee for a discussion is to confirm the reason why the motion, I agree with the motion. Back in January, and under resolution 2021-39 of the rationale of the projects that we've got listed, and it's in the closed section, says that we've already contacted the minister and it's 100% complete. It's exactly the same as this motion. So why are we bringing the motion up when we've already completed the request in the January meeting?
I would have thought because we haven't had any action when the minister did talk to us, and the general manager himself went down there one day with other people, and that there was things that was said that there was going to happen. I'm not confident they've all been done. There has been some done on
But the reality of bringing the motion to this table, Mr. Mayor, is there's been no action from the minister. And as I said before, every day that it remains stuck, it goes backwards at 100 miles an hour. And if you don't look after things, it's like having a house and leaving it empty. It deteriorates.
That was my point.
No, I understand what you're trying to.
What I'm trying to say is, because we've had an action and it's been completed while we've got a motion, I support your motion 100%, because that's why that come up in the before on that resolution in 39.
But what we're trying to do here is to make sure, because as soon as this goes into the press, you'll get a response out of Parks or the minister. Because at the present time, as soon as whatever you have, things behind closed doors and start to discuss, the ministers or their advisors take no notice of it whatsoever. The minute it turns up in the public arena, there's a response within 24 hours. That's the reason.
That's that.
My main concern out of all of this is that we only have one tarred road in and a lot of trucks that come in and out. And that alternative access to the community has been closed off to big trucks for months.
That's right.
And the accident in December, at the end of year, there was an end of year assembly on, and there was an accident at the Black River Bridge, and
Just, no, you've got the wrong.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
No, but I understand. If we're talking about Dismal Swamp, it's the
Yeah,
first motion.
we could talk about
Yeah,
both.
the two.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, you're right.
the motion, sorry, out of all of the topics that are in those two motions, the one is of huge concern to the area, and all of concern, but for personally, I see the alternative access for the trucks and the milk and the concern for the milk industry and all the knock-on effects of that one road is really not to be underestimated or underplayed. I agree with both motions, but that
Sorry,
for me
that's in the
is
next motion, yeah, I understand that. That's a spine top.
It's sort of-
I mean, we're talking about the motion now, I only want the clarification, and I think that's been explained. It's because of your action that the motion is more powerful than the other one. I accept that.
So we're doing these in two motions, or?
Yes, it's whatever, two motions.
Okay, well, there's no other questions on the first motion, which is the one that we're dealing with now. So we've got to resume meeting procedures, is that correct? We need a motion for that, I can just do that. I understand, yep. So now we're to the motion again that councillor Old has put up about forest beaches. Are there any further discussion, councillor Boston?
I'd like to support the motion, and I'd like to ask the mover of the motion if he's prepared to up this to the Premier. I believe the Minister's had plenty of time to answer. He hasn't even acknowledged the letter, and I think the Premier needs to be told that we're not happy with his performance and his acknowledgement. So I'm not quite sure.
I don't have a problem.
I think he should go higher than the Minister because he's the one that's letting us down.
So we need to add where it's a Minister of Tourism, but and the Premier.
Yeah, that's
Any further discussion?
It would come, the Premier would come in after the word, the Minister for Parks.
That's it. Councillor Harris.
Mr Mayor, thank you. I'd just like to speak and support the motion by Councillor Oldacre. I think it's another 3 months that has impacted greatly tourism operators west of Smithton. I'm lucky enough to talk to several of them late last week, and they this is their number one priority to fix. So, like it's been mentioned, there's only one road pretty well sealed west to Marrawall, so that's what brings a lot of people to our region, and it's important that this is the major shortcuts we need to fix.
Thank you. Any further speakers?
I'd just like to ask a question on that. Have we got any feedback at all from our Minister? There's been letters written, so there's been none.
We have discussed it with GM and myself.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In relation to responses, we actually haven't had a formal response at this point in time. We've written a letter and submitted a proposal with some suggested opportunities to initialise reopening of the site, but we actually haven't had a formal response.
The Minister has to talk to us about it, but
Yeah.
no formal response.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further speakers? Nobody's spoken against it, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Supported unanimous. Your second motion, Councillor Oldham.
I rise to move the second motion.
We've got a second on the second, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
And the word Premier probably needs adding into this too, Councillor Popowski.
Yes, thank you.
Can I, look, there's been a few words just expressed here a few moments ago. This is an outlet for if there's an accident somewhere there at Black River, that there's an outlet to take the traffic. That's the first thing. But for parks to want to shut it down, and that's the information that I see on my electronic page, that they want to shut it down because it's not on their capital register. Nobody wants to own it. It's a bit like the road we had out here when Forestry got destroyed, they took away, and nobody wanted to own a piece of road out there, and it got to such a state, like you couldn't drive on it. That's what this has got to. This is an outlet for this community to go if there's an accident, a major accident on the highway. As has been explained, it's not only milk trucks, it's heavy traffic that can go out through Loosemores Road and get out onto the highway that way. It is paramount, and that barbecue equipment, see, there has been a lot of people over the last 30 years or more has used those barbecues and had wonderful times down there, and want to still, the community is still telling us they want to still go there. And it's absolutely fundamental to get this road. Don't let them come saying, well, we don't know who owns the road. Well, you just tell the government, fix the damn thing, and then we'll work out who owns it. And do it properly. You know, it has to, it's a priority that has to be done. And I call on the council to support it.
The General Manager himself talked to the Minister about this on last Friday. And they have got a costing on it, and they know that it is their road, and it's going to cost $25,000 to fix it up. And they at this point in time try and find where they can get $25,000. It hasn't fixed it, and I don't know whether it's going to have to be next budget or whether they're going to be able to find it in this year's budget. He was still, according to the Minister, is trying to find that. That is the cost, but we still need to write this letter because we need to put pressure on them to make sure.
Absolutely.
I support the motion.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Deputy Mayor.
I rise to support the motion, absolutely. I've been on about this for the last 2 years and it still hasn't been done, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating. I think Councillor Olake put it up, and I think it needs to be fixed sooner than later. And if it's not, we need to keep asking and keep knocking. This needs fixing.
Yeah, I support the motion as well. What I would suggest or ask is that there's a group out there working hard for the road / the barbecue area, but maybe we liaise and then we'll work as one group rather than have bits shooting that but we can support this motion and go through the whole process there, whilst in that word, in Castellation, whatever it is, the whole lot of this.
Yeah, we need to be working with that group and hope that they might like to respond as well.
Oh, they will.
Got a petition. Yes, sir. Any further speakers for the motion?
Minister not talking to the
If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Move right along. We now come to 10.1, which is the planning authority items, and so just to remind the council, we are dealing now as a council, as a planning authority, and we'll right into 10.1. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First one, shed extension at 22 William Street. There's an existing shed garage on the southern boundary of the property. Proposal is to extend that along the boundary. We've had one representation from an adjoining landowner, principally concerned about potential blocking of private views from their land. This is not, unfortunately, an issue that can be considered under the planning scheme. Discretion being sought is a setback relaxation to that southern side boundary, but it's been reviewed, and the proposed shed extension would not result in any overshadowing of a dwelling to the south or any of the habitable rooms or usable private open space, so it would not have any detrimental impact on an adjoining property and is therefore recommended for approval.
Thank you very much. Somebody prepared to move the recommendation? Thank you. Second? Yes. Councillor Pleasant. Is there any discussion or questions? No discussion or questions? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll head into 10.2, subdivision consents and examination.
Thank you. So, this one's actually a reverse subdivision, so consolidating two properties into one, and then construction of a shed on the larger property once it's created. Again, one representation was submitted on this one, citing many impacts of the proposed shed. The discretions sought on this one, a minor setback relaxation to the rear boundary, and your half metre just for the eaves of the roof. The second setback relaxation is actually to the internal boundary, which is going to be removed as part of this proposal. So it still needs to be considered just in case they don't proceed with the subdivision consolidation. So therefore, it's essentially an arbitrary consideration, but we do consider it anyway. There is no setback relaxation to the property that the representative resides on. Therefore, it's given that there would be no amenity impacts to the adjoining property, there's no setback relaxation. Therefore, the proposal for this one is also recommended for approval.
Thank you very much. Is somebody prepared to move this one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Plosky, seconded. Councillor Harris. Again, is any discussion required? It's fairly self-explanatory to me. If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. We now come to 11.1, Community Small Grants, 2021.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I'd like to present the report for the Community Small Grants Scheme 2021, round 2. Of the 4 applications received, 2 have been recommended for approval. The first one being the Circular Head Children's Services, Watering for the Future. This project is to install a water tank at the centre. The project is to educate and promote sustainable practices in water usage into future years. The second one is for the Smithton Seventh-day Adventist Church, new replacement of a kitchen. Due to long-term water damage to this kitchen, they're seeking funding for an upgrade, and so the kitchen is used primarily for food preparation, which then they also distribute throughout the community, and which was heavily supported through the COVID pandemic. The grant round was advertised through the local media, the website and social media outlets for a period of 6 weeks prior to the closure of the grants on the 28th of February. The applications were presented to Council at the workshop on the 11th of March for their discussions, and so Councillors, I table the report for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Somebody prepared to move the recommendations?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll move the
Thanks,
recommendation.
Councillor Jay. Second, Councillor Edmund, thank you. Is there any questions or discussion required? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now going to waste update, year-to-date results.
Thanks through, Mr Mayor, and appreciate that, Councillor Plosky. Before you, councillors, is an update based on waste tonnage year-to-date for our waste services. In that report, we've made comparisons to Waratah Wynyard. We've made a similar fee change at the transfer station at the same time, but also to Burnie City Council, who have a similar fee and ticket arrangement to the previous arrangement of Circular Head as a base case to see if there are any other underlying trends. And the data shows on page 142 of the agenda that year-to-date comparisons 1920 to 2021 show a 17% increase for Burnie City Council, 12% for Waratah Wynyard and 5.5% for Circular Head. That would seem to point to other circumstances beyond tip fee tickets having an increase on waste generation and potentially COVID-19, people having time to dispose of waste, and anecdotally, Burnie City Council said they believe that to be a factor. When we look closer at the transfer station, again with a comparison to Waratah Wynyard, who made the same change to fees, Circular Head Council year to date If the trend continues, we'll see a 12% increase. In comparison to Warragul, it was 24% increase. If that trend is sustained, the end outcome of that would be, you see next year's budget for council to achieve full cost recovery through the transfer station contribution charge. It would require a $7 per property increase to the $78 current charge. So I'll present the report.
Thank you. So we're prepared to move the recommendation. Councillor from the Deputy Mayor. Is there any discussion or questions?
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to commend Daniel and his staff for not only for the figures, but also a proactive approach looking into this. I know there's probably been a bit of backlash with not having tickets of late, but figures don't lie. And I think, like Daniel's mentioned, it has been a COVID year, so I think we've done a very good job as a municipality.
I just want to make a comment on talking to the manager at White Hills, and he was saying since the tickets have ceased, the amount of rubbish has increased enormously to a point where they haven't got enough bins. So I don't know if anyone has heard that report or not, but that was just an interesting comment. Thank you.
Anything further? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
That's carried. Financial reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Over there.
Councillors, before you we have the financial reports for the period ending 28th of February 2021. At the bottom of the page 146, we've received one application for first time owners grant acknowledging 22 for the year, which is probably our last 3 years added together in total, so going great guns at the end of February so far. We have the closing funds for the special committees listed on that page as well. Onto the comprehensive income statement, we have the current surplus from operating activities at 2.3 million compared to a loss of 1.2. We have recently done some internal forecasting figures which look much better than what the 1.2 loss does at this point in time. So we'll wait in the next 3 months and lead up to 30th of June to see where we end up. In terms of the statement of financial position, the balance sheet, we've currently got community equity of 227.5 million and investments at call at 9.1 million. In terms of the cash flow statement, our cash balance 14.7 million. In terms of receivables on page 150, our rates collected, surprisingly in a COVID year, are actually up by about 1.8%. Compared to previous years, which is fantastic. So 8.52% at the same time last year compared to 6.67 this year. And sundry debtors are about $150,000 more, but as explained before, that's all to do with time and invoices. That's about debts. And we have the bank reconciliation and the cash flow for your information. So I'll present the report for council's consideration, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Somebody prepared to move this?
I'll move that, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Woodward?
And can I ask a question when you get a second?
I'll say it, Mr. Mayor.
You can.
Just so you can ask the question.
Well, I'll be one ahead of you. With the grants that come in, up till now, there's what, 1,238,000. So we're looking at from 2020. Sorry, you've got it, haven't you? You've got 3,250,000 in grants. Is that right? At this stage?
That's the budget. That's what we budgeted for. Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yep. So the next column across to your left.
That's what you've got.
That's what we've got.
1 million.
Yep. And also that's just the financial assistance grants. Right. So that's the road one and the base one that we get. So they're called operating grants. Right. If you go down further, where it's got note number 3 down there in the blue, there's one there called grants. So they're our capital grants. So that's where roads to recovery, the LRCI funding, anything to do with bridge building, road building,
new buildings, anything like that, that's where those, yeah, all that type of thing. So actually with the two of them added together, we've probably got, what's it, 4, 5, 6 point something
In grants.
in grants so far, and we've still got 2 more lots to get from that top operating one as well from the financial assistance grant, so it's going to be quite big this year.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, are they all Tasmanian or federal? Are they both?
Mix of both.
Yep. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want a quick comment about the financial position we just put a fair bit into. Just again, what a lot of people probably don't see is the work that goes on in the background. In the last 12 months, there's been a huge barrel work done to bring this a little bit more in line with where we'd like to be, and I feel quite comfortable with where we're at, and I'd just like to say a positive comment towards the staff who are probably a little bit tired. They've really been giving it a good go for the last 12 months, and this is showing up here where we are, and just wanted to say that it doesn't just happen, and that there's a lot going to put us in this good position. We've still got a way to go. We still have to be careful of the depreciation and the grants that Council would have mentioned, but still, just wanted to thank them.
And you're right, I think there's no skipping grants, takes a lot of work, and then you've got to match them up to what we're about to spend at a long time. It doesn't happen. There's a lot of work goes on. Thank you. Councillor Rice,
Just got a quick one in relation to employee costs. I know on page 147, the total being in expenses of 3.4 million. However, on page 149, it's in cash used as 3.6. I just want clarity whether it's 3.4, 3.6, or whether I've misquoted it.
So one's profit loss statement, so that will have non-cash type payments in that. So the other one's actually the cash paid out.
Yeah.
So we'll have what's called balance day adjustments, so things each month, like leave accruals and things like that, where we don't actually pay them to the staff member, but we actually process them in the finance system. They come on as a liability. So there's actually 2 different figures there.
Yeah.
One's the cash that goes out, and the other one includes other adjustments under accounting standards. So yeah.
any further discussion or questions? Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'll go to 12.3, which is
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Senior management report presented for council's consideration. There's a number of activities that are listed there. Celebrations around the Healthy Tasmania project, International Women's Day, activities that were undertaken last night out at Forest around mental health and a role play workshop, the cause suicide prevention training. My understanding and feedback is that that's fully subscribed now, which is very positive in the community. The Harmony Day activity will be undertaken this Sunday between 11 and 2 p.m. at the West Esplanade Park. Community small grants, which council has considered earlier. There's reports there in relation to TEDx youth and other activities in that particular area. The Chill report indicates the activities that are being lined up to be participated in. One thing I've skipped over there is there's a number of activities rolling through in relation to Know Your Odds, and the Smithton Skate Park activity scheduled for Sunday the 28th of March. Youth Week activities and 7up are also reported there. Like councillors to note that the mountain bike group has been active and had several meetings over the last few weeks. They're working through their priorities, and you can see the members of the community that are listed there working diligently on that project. Circular Head Community Recreation Centre security upgrades been worked through. There's some notes there from Swirl and also in relation to emergency management. There's a number of items of correspondence which were detailed earlier in the agenda that are in the information bulletin. I'd be happy to answer any questions that councillors have.
Councillor Aldo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think last night Forest, are you involved, mate? Just wondering, just, Dan, for you, the general manager, or the staff, would be able to obtain some of those statistics that was put up on the board last night, because they were absolutely alarming. And for those involved, I'd like to personally thank them for the effort that they put in to get that lady here, because I thought she done an outstanding job in the presentation she made, because it's just able to, and if we can get those statistics, because that would make people really think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was a really good night last night, and I had a comment today from a person that thanked council for being involved, and made special mention of the amount of staff that we had out there last night. I thought that it was fantastic that staff saw fit to go out there after hours and be part of it. So, so we're chuffed about that, and Scott needs to staff know that they were very happy with the people there. The information there last night was terrific, and it shows you just how big an issue it is, and how much we've got to continue to work on it, which we have in the past, and we need to in the future. The other one that I'd like to just mention there. Is there any other questions while I find them? Is there any other queries on any of that, or comments that people have made? Oh, the other one was harmony day, that's right. We just asked as many people as possible to be there, or can come. I know that not everybody can come to all things, but I know we had a guy from Greenlands here yesterday, or the guy that's organising the people from overseas. We're going to do another 20 coming in another fortnight, and 20 about 2 weeks after that. And Greenlands are expecting their workforce to be around 6% Australians, and the rest are going to be overseas people with all their premises, not only in Scotland but on the mainland as well, because they just can't get local people to do the work. And so I certainly see the importance of these type of events and others as well, because they do recognise there's some issues with people from overseas, and so they are all going to be here for 3 years. Some of the ones that's coming in the future are from Samoa and Venezuela, and so we're going to see more people around their community. So we need to welcome them, and hopefully some of them probably will be there. Well, we did talk about that, and we might have soccer in their area, or but we need to encourage the sporting clubs need to come and talk to these people, because some of these people will be good sports people, and if you can play soccer, you can play football, you just got to learn the rules.
If they take it, you can make it.
Even Kate's little fellow can start getting involved in football now, much to the disgust. We might find others being involved as well. And seriously, I mean, the sporting clubs can do an injection of people, because they are the yeah, that's right. So anyway, that's yeah, I encourage as many people to come as possible.
Yeah, I might only be here for an hour, so I'm just going to be being here all day, so I'll check it off Wednesday, Sunday anyway. But I was just wondering, with Greenlands, has there been any more mention of growth to accommodate some of the Samoan and other workers? Has there been any more discussions on perhaps some of them going to grow?
Not so much more.
No, that's all right.
Yeah. No, the other one I was going to talk about as well was the 10 Days in Ireland. The function they had out at Stanley on Friday night before last was fantastic. It was a sellout. TSR and Monique did a fantastic job, and everybody that I spoke to was quite excited to be there. And there's a number of people from along the coast that come down as well. So it was a really good night, but it was Great application. Any other comments or questions or can't debate, let's have a motion. I'll ask for a motion on the civil management report. Agreed. Thanks, Councillor Riley. Councillor Woodward. No further debate. I'll put the motion, all those in favour. Aye. Against, carried. Now go to 13, which is minutes of committees. Matthew, there's one there that wasn't there, is that true?
It actually hasn't got a tab list to me. Scroll through.
So can I have a motion to accept these four?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Leslie and Deputy Mayor. I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. We'll go through them individually now, it's down the town hall. Any questions on those at all? No questions? Also, the night out at Stanley, the amount of good comments were about the hall was unbelievable. People that hadn't been here before, I thought it was a wonderful premise. We'll go then along to 13.2, Circular Recreation Advisory Committee, and you'll notice there on the suggestion 1 and 2, we are looked at, and this is similar to what Councillor Riley was talking about, whether we should change it around a bit, reducing the meetings, probably not have it as a special committee, but just an advisory body or whatever, but we are looking at, we're going to go in tomorrow on Monday night, and then we're going to go out to Stanley because we've been around all the other places, and so after that we'll look at coming back to council and remodel that committee to whatever we need to do. That's about all that needs to be said there, Councillor Blizzard, isn't it?
Yep.
Thank you. Check. Councillor Redmond. Fair bit going on there at this point in time, but
And that was November.
yes, it's still going.
Shut down the event since November. So all the minutes, so
The one behind.
good job you know what's going on, because I'm confused of all the hubs and jubs and nuts.
Fair enough too, so we sometimes. There was one today and there was one on February 18th.
Nothing more to mention at all at this stage?
I'm not sure if it's their study hub deed of variation has gone into government, and so we'll wait to see where that progresses to learn about the tertiary education support. And there's an application being looked at for literacy support.
I talked to Mayor Vickers last Thursday, and he said that he hadn't heard nothing, but he expected it was going to happen in the next week or two.
Oh, right.
So it shouldn't be very far away.
Thank
He
you.
was hoping assuming that it's a tick off, which he pretty confidently will, but they'll be advertising for somebody in April. So it shouldn't be far away. He wants to get it to us as quickly as he can so we can get established well and truly before the end of June next year cut off. Well, we've got to apply before then, so he was keen to get it moving sooner rather than later. Thanks for that. We'll go into Community Road Safety Partnerships Committee. Any questions on that at all?
Oh, Mr Mayor, I do have a question for road safety on the roads. That's not in these minutes, these minutes be accepted?
They're already been done.
Oh, sorry, they've already been done. My question is, can we ask the Road Safety Committee to investigate the road safety issue that's been raised with me on Nelson Street from the roundabout into Main Street, there is a number of trees that have concrete bins around them. People riding bikes, some of those concrete bins are out on the white line, and they come in along that white line and then they've got to come out. Then cars not realising what's happening, and there's been 2 or 3 near misses. So we could ask them to have a look at that and then come back with a recommendation what we're going to do.
Sure. David, looking at that or our staff? Mr. Jean?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I combine that will probably be appropriate.
Yeah.
No problem. Anything else? Nothing else? We are then down to questions. The matters listed for consideration in closed meeting. Got a move for that? Thank you. I'll put the motion, all those in favour? It's carried. I'm not sure the next one's required because we're looking from the public here. So I suppose we better still work.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, please.
I'll put the motion, oh, sorry, I've got to put the second.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, councillor Woodward, seconded.
Yes.
Councillor Braxton, I think.
Done,
That wouldn't be hard to do.
Put the motion, all those in favour? Yes, carried. Don't shut the door because it's not.